In the last video, we learned how to declare simple function declarations in JavaScript. In this video, we're going to work with something called function expressions. And a function expression is just a function that's been assigned to a constant. So let's look at how this works. We write a function using the keyword function, and in parentheses, we can specify parameters, and then there's a block of code within curly braces that has a bunch of statements that will run when somebody wants to call the function. Now that function is assigned to a constant name. So we give it a constant name. Technically, you could use a variable here, but we use a constant because we don't want people to accidentally reassign our function. And if we make it a constant, they can't do that. So it's always going to be a constant on the left side. We pass the parameters into the function. It runs just like it normally would using the previous method we saw of function declarations. It's just that the name gets assigned on the left side now. Let's take a look at some examples. Here's a function. It takes no parameters, and in between the curly braces is the code that will run when somebody calls the function. And it's the same code we saw before, where a new data object is created and assigned to today, and then it alerts and pops up the year and gets the full year part of the today object. Okay. That function was assigned to this constant show year. So for us to call this, we just call show year, the name of the constant we declared up here, with empty parentheses because this function doesn't require any parameters. And it will do the code as it's written. We can also do the same thing with the dollar function. So this is the dollar function rewritten as a function expression. So we say function, and the parameter is that somebody has to pass in a selector when they call our function. And it's just going to return the query selector for that selector, as we saw previously. So this function is assigned to a constant, which is the dollar sign. So this is the dollar function rewritten, and it allows us to shorten our query selector, document.querySelector, to a dollar sign, pass in the ID or class or tag of anything we're trying to get a reference to. And in this case, we're getting the value of what's ever in probably a text box that's assigned email1 for its ID. And that's going to get stored in our email1 constant. Here is the calculate tax function rewritten as a function expression. So we have function, and the function takes a subtotal and tax rate as parameters. The subtotal and tax rate are multiplied together, rounded to 2 decimal places, and returned. The only difference here is we wrote it with the generic word function and assigned it to a constant called calculate tax. This code is exactly the same as what we saw in the last video. When we call calculate tax, which was the name we assigned up here, we still have to pass it the 2 parameters that our function required, subtotal and tax rate. It does the calculate tax. It returns the value that gets stored here in sales tax, and then we can pop up alert box with the sales tax of $4.25 in this case. So that's function expressions. They're just another way to write functions, and they're leading us to a third kind of function, or a third way to write functions, which we'll see in the next video.